Hello and welcome to a very exciting 30-minute session. Why exciting? Because we're going to talk about people. Call me biased, but I find people to be absolutely fascinating. You've spent your entire career as part of a team or in charge of one, and I'm sure you've made some great decisions and some that were not so great. But you're always trying to figure out what makes people tick, what makes them behave a certain way. And so you join me today to learn how to make better people decisions in the workplace and do it more consistently. That is the key. If you're a hiring manager, HR professional, or a CEO, you will walk away with tools, ideas, and at the very least, some hope that yes, absolutely, we can build a winning organization even in this new hiring reality. All we need is the right people. And this is where I come in. My name is Tatiana St. Germain, and I am your executive coach, strategic advisor to CEOs and executives, and a talent optimization expert. I've dedicated the past 17 years of my life and career to the study of human behavior in the workplace. And I've helped over 1,000 organizations optimize their hiring and development strategy to ensure that they have the right people in the right jobs because this is really the only way to build a great company. So, the right people, we hear a lot about them. Who are these right people? Are they the endangered species because it's so difficult to find them? All too often, we interview these well dressed folks on the left, and somehow people who show up the next day or who we end up with are these two stooges on the right. Or sometimes we find ourselves that we live in the real show, The Office, all the while wondering who hired this clown. So, unless you're running a circus, in which case he would be the right person, chances are this clown is not the right person. So, again, who are these right people? Well, the right people means they're superior producers. They're the ones, and they're superior producers because they're the ones who fit the job. Right people are the ones who are on your bus, not because they've been pushed in there or their mommy told them to go get on the bus and they stay here because they're getting paid. These people, the right people, know the bus's destination. They're purposeful. They know the reason they're there and they're fully engaged in helping your bus get there faster. They're in the right seats on the bus. They know what their next seat on the bus is going to be, and they know that their contributions are valued. The fit could be looked at threefold. It's you've got to fit the job. Um, Fit the job means that they can deal with demands of the position and have the capacity to do well, even under less than ideal circumstances, like we experienced in 2020. They need to fit the team and the manager. It means they're comfortable with the demands of the environment and the people they must work with effectively. It means they feel like they're on a complementary team, which is where individual weaknesses are irrelevant because we're leveraging each other's strengths. And they fit the culture. They really enjoy the work, they're engaged, motivated, and perhaps what they really want in life is given an outlet at work. And we find that people fail in jobs not because they can't do something, it's because they didn't fit the job from the beginning. And that is on you, the hiring manager. And so the next two questions are, how do we ensure this job fit? And why in the world is it so difficult to determine which person is the right for which position? So we'll answer both of those. First, why is it so hard to figure out who the right person is? Well, because people are so complicated. I've been saying for years that people are like icebergs. And in the past 12 months, we actually got to experience it. You see, from day-to-day interactions, you only see about 10% of who the person really is. That's what's visible, that's what's above the water surface. Um, and this is what you would experience when you work with someone side by side for many, many years. Unless you've been through thick and thin with them, I guarantee you, you don't know them. You don't know them, and they won't show their weaknesses or self-perceived weaknesses until they're provoked or stressed out. And under normal circumstances, people will hide that and will actually have really great capacity to do many things outside of their comfort zone, kind of stretch a little bit. People are also like rubber bands, and they can do some things that they're not comfortable with as long as they're properly motivated. For example, when you see people at the interview, well, they want the job. So they're motivated to be everything you want them to be for that short period of time. So you hire them, and then you're surprised that a different person shows up for work. Core tendencies always come through during the time of crisis, stress, tension, or pandemic. An example, last year in April, I was on a Zoom call where halfway through the meeting, the president of the company just threw her hands up in the air saying, I can't do this anymore, and disconnected from the call, leaving their executive team just baffled. So how come some leaders completely fell apart in the face of this unprecedented disruption of 2020, and others, leaders and frontline employees alike, shined with great ideas and resilience and fast action and innovation? The answer is they've always had it in them. We just didn't see it. We did not know. According to a Vistage report during 2020, we experienced 15 years of change, behavior change, in 30 days. 15 years of change in 30 days. So it's natural that the seismic shift in reality really started to flip those icebergs. And now we see people's true potential or lack thereof. It's that 90% that's below the water surface. So remember, when we introduce stress, tension, conflict, change, people's true nature will always come rushing through with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's what we saw in 2020. In other words, keep in mind that stress did not change people. The stress itself exposed who people really are, and that's how it always works. And of course, therein lies a great challenge for us, the hiring managers and HR professionals. Now we need to assess what's required for each job, assess people's attributes, and then match them accordingly. And it's almost impossible to do without proper tools. And the pandemic, of course, did flush out some of the organizational inefficiencies, selection system weaknesses, and probably uncovered a lot of your hiring mistakes. You just got to remember that it was not the tip of the iceberg that sank the Titanic. It was what they couldn't see that was hiding below the water surface. And to make matters worse, now we have this brave new world, new reality. The pandemic exposed new pain points and exacerbated some of the older, ongoing, existing hiring challenges. Many of the hiring managers I spoke with over the last 10 to 12 months said they found it difficult to even dedicate time to the hiring process, as everything is changing and everything just seems so haphazard. But we do have a different applicant pool, different ages, different expectations, different work ethic. We also have this renewed talent war for those who were laid off, but they're not desperate to re-enter the workforce. Many people are using this as an opportunity to reconsider their career paths, which is probably a positive thing, but it doesn't make it any easier on employers. And both interviewers and interviewees are struggling with the virtual interviewing environment. The concern here is that when you don't meet the person in person, it's hard to assess how they will behave in different settings. Will they fit the job? Will they fit the culture? And you know what? Some people still hate cameras and they feel like they're never their best on Zoom or Teams. Uh, the job requirements themselves are changing. Now, jobs require employees to be self accountable, self motivated. They manage themselves and their hours and productivity. They work with little to no supervision and only virtual space to collaborate. So, and not everyone is wired to be productive in a remote setting. And we are finding that this causes many organizations to review their job requirements and what success looks like in each position. Um, in the years that I've been working with organizations conducting similar workshops, I always talk about the cost of turnover and how painful it is when you hire a bad one. However, today I keep saying bad hire just doesn't just hurt. You cannot afford it. Department of Labor estimates that bad hires cost organizations up to 30% of first year salary, but I've always felt that that was a very, very conservative estimate. And it's extremely difficult to recoup some of these costs when you hire a person who is not productive, who doesn't fit, because you're already short staffed, you have rolling quarantines, kids out of school. I mean, the list goes on. So you've got to make sure that your new employees don't feel isolated, they're fully integrated, they don't cause trouble, and at the same time, you're having fewer touch points with your staff and fewer opportunities to control the rumor mill or whatever else that bad hire might instigate within your organization. Onboarding has become challenging as well. My Just from the work with credit unions, I understand that many of the branches are open and fully staffed. So perhaps this is not as big of a concern. But a lot of the training and interviewing and conferences such as this one are in a virtual or at least blended environment. So there are plenty of opportunities for misunderstandings, and it can jeopardize engagement and retention because it's so difficult to build loyalty and trust through a computer screen, and difficult to connect across teams. These are some of our challenges in the new world. And of course, it would have been so much easier if we had people's strengths and weaknesses and their potential just written all over them. How much better would and easier our decisions would be to hire, to coach, to promote, to train, and how to train. But since people don't come with technical manuals, usually, unless you're working with me, we do rely on some traditional methods. And the traditional methods in the new environment, you do the math. Some of them don't work, and I'm sure many of you are guilty of committing some of these hiring mistakes. I'll run through them pretty quickly. So, first one is hiring in your own image. Yes, I know you like yourself and you like people who are like you, but thinking of your strengths and weaknesses and how they serve you in your current role, could you really handle a carbon copy of yourself working for you? Aren't you hiring somebody to do a job that you don't want to do? Plus, you are the quarterback. You can't build a team made of quarterbacks. Everybody has their strengths and challenges. You want to create a complementary team. And I've already mentioned those are the teams where individual weaknesses are made irrelevant. The interview, oh gosh, where do I start? First of all, we spend very little time in the interview actually making the decision. The decision, the judgment call is made anywhere from the first 5 minutes to first 10 seconds. You might wonder, well, what do we do the rest of the time? We just conducted a 45-minute interview and it went well. Well, you spend that whole time in pursuit of confirmation bias. That's the technical term. What it actually means is you just, after the first 5 minutes or 10 seconds, you've made your decision and you develop selective hearing that will help you justify your initial reaction. Kind of like in the movie The Matrix, when the Oracle told Neo, you've already made your decision, you just had to understand it. So, the pursuit of confirmation bias. And Wall Street Journal nailed it with the 2020 study. They said interviews are just an exercise in deception. Pretty shocking, but in 15-minute interview, they estimate that 2 to 3 lies are told. And many studies over the years tell us and continue to tell us you have about 14 to 16% chance of hiring a top performer when you rely solely on the interview. So while interviews are awesome, can't do without them, you have to do them, but you have to do them right. Another big mistake we do, which is kind of old-timey mistake, you probably don't see that anymore because it's extremely expensive, is a revolving door. Hire, fire until they stick. It's called a post-selection system. You just put a warm body in the seat and then hope they fit. If they don't, then you put them on a plan or do something else, coaching, training, and always hoping that there will be a different person when they come to work next day. It just doesn't work, and it's just extremely costly. And the piece that we can absolutely fix is the faulty and incomplete information. Resumes, naturally, we do need to see some kind of record of prior work and education, but 80% of resumes are exaggerated. And it's a listing of things that somebody did in the past, including their education. But just because somebody did something in the past doesn't mean they can do the same thing for you. And just because they're educated doesn't mean they're intelligent. I've met so many educated idiots. We don't know if that means that they have the potential to learn and adapt to change. Wall Street Journal reported that 20 to 30% of people invent a degree. What a statistic. I at first was shocked by it, but then I remembered I worked with a client of many years, and their VP of HR was finally caught. She did not have any degrees that she put on her resume, and they never bothered to check. Just wondering the whole time, oh, why was she not so good at her job? And don't get me started on reference checks. Honestly, have you ever listed someone on your CV or resume who would give you a bad reference? So to recap our troubles, we know and acknowledge that one, people are complicated. Two, we have a new reality in the workplace and hiring. Three, people don't come with technical manuals. And four, we cannot rely on traditional methods of hiring because we have that new reality. We cannot afford to make the same mistakes. And when we do make those mistakes, there's only three places you can fix them: front door, in house, and back door. Front door, that's the easiest. This is where you can invest your time and money, improve your selection system so you hire the right person first time, every time. If you think it's easier said than done, I assure you it's not as complicated as you think when you have the right tools. So stay tuned. I'm sure you haven't hired people on purpose that didn't meet your expectations. Usually it's a surprise. Up to 66% of hiring decisions can prove to be mistakes in the first year. And it's an older quote because everything just seems to have sped up recently. One of my CEOs I'm working with reported that he fired someone after 4 days. Why four? Well, because after showing up late for the first 4 days, this new hire asked for a Friday off. If you don't hire right, prepare for a fight. We hire on competence, but fire on fit with the job. So, how much time do you waste trying to fit that round peg in the square hole? Best case scenario, 3 months from the moment you identify performance issues to the point you release them back into the work pool. And that's 25% of the year when the job is done poorly or not at all. And you have to resort to the back door. It's not a very pleasant door to use, but sometimes we have to. People fail in jobs not because they can't do the job, but because they don't fit the job. Operation Great People. What do we do about all of this? First, plan. Get together with your management team, have an honest conversation about your selection system, gaps, weaknesses. Are you leaking talent? Are your managers horrible interviewers? Are they still asking cliche questions that don't get you anywhere except getting you a person who is smart enough to prepare for the questions? Your job as an interviewer is to be the ambassador for your company. Great talent is really picky. So the interview should go really well and be representative of the organizational culture. So when you interview, you are the ambassador, you are the representative of your company. So who might need some training on how to interview? Make sure you include hiring managers in the process because after all, they're the ones who are impacted the most by the new hires. So this takes a pretty high for them. And whatever your process, make sure it's consistent. I assure you, if you spend some time in calculating the true cost of turnover, and I have a few turnover calculators I can share with you, you will recognize how much you can invest, and the return on investment when you invest in your people will be tremendous. But you don't know what you don't know. And when you're calculating the turnover, it's not just benefits and pay, it's all those other factors and the impact on the employee morale. People are your number one resource. Invest in them, um, and you can start reducing those people related costs. You have some resources here about the job, understand the job requirements. Here on the slide, a couple of links that are helpful. The one thing I wanted to focus here, just real quick, is the difference between job description and role description. All of you are using job descriptions. The limitation of that is that you list minimum requirements. So it comes hardly as a surprise when people we hire match minimum requirements and then they cannot perform during extraordinary circumstances. Kind of like that leader I mentioned who hung up on her executive team. Role descriptions help your candidates and your new hires understand their role in your company, in your company's story, and what is their impact? What is their story within your company's story? I'm reminded of a story about bricklayers. Three bricklayers were asked about what they do. The first one said with an eye roll, "Oh, well, I'm laying bricks, can't you see?" The second one, without taking the eye off his work, said, "I am building a wall." And the third one, whistling as he went, said, "I am building a cathedral." Shared destiny, knowing the destination of the bus. Role descriptions can really help you accomplish results faster than posting your core values in pretty print on the wall of your lobby. Finding qualified people, that's the attract piece. Let's We've got to think outside of the box. We have to be creative. And I'm listing a couple of ideas, innovative methods, and some older ones that are making a comeback. And I could do a whole workshop on just that. But proactive LinkedIn people searches can yield great results because they allow you to build your talent pool and connect with those who may not be actively looking for a job, but they check all of your boxes. There are filters you can use that produce a list of those who fit your criteria and then update you weekly on any new profiles that fit your search. Personally connecting with potential candidates, it's it's become part of every successful strategy that I've heard of for hiring managers and CEOs. Um, Also, looking at the new generation, how they search for companies and deciding which companies they want to work for. Younger millennials and Gen Zs, they're very well connected on social media. So naturally, they would go online. You have to have web presence. But surprisingly, they're not only looking at LinkedIn and Facebook and Glassdoor would be obvious, but also Instagram and Twitter. So there's tremendous opportunity for companies to attract young talent more passively, as long as you are building strong reputation online, share employee stories, get involved in the community, that sort of thing. And finally, your whole selection system is how you choose your people. And it's that decision is threefold. It's a three-legged stool because to make a good decision, you have to evaluate three pieces of information. It's about the candidate's past, which is their resume, background, um, present, the interview, and the future. The most elusive part of that is the future. And that's the job fit. The job fit is what we're after. Something that's not based on gut feel, but something that's based on using predictive psychometric tools. So let's talk about job fit. Job fit is established using three steps. First, you have to identify, using measurable metrics, identify your top people. Thinking about who you would, if you were to start over, who would you take with you? Who are your superstars? Identify them, assess them, understand what makes them tick. Then establish benchmarks for all jobs using that top performer data. And then once you have the benchmarks of success for every position, you've captured what top performance looks like that you can take with you in the future. Then start assessing your candidates and your existing employees, match them to the top performer benchmarks in order to understand the gaps, the fit, and development opportunities. And I could talk more in detail, but I wanted to introduce you to PXT Select, which is the tool that we use to accomplish that difficult proposition, predicting the future and identifying the job fit. Many credit unions are familiar with it. I've worked with credit unions for over 10 years. Um, And we've been using this very successfully. The reason I'm focusing on this selection tool is because it's so versatile. If you remember, you might challenge me from the description of this session. I promised you a tool that will help you optimize your people, recruit, interview better, make smarter people decisions, coach, develop your employees, and build more effective teams. And this is it. PXT Select is it. So let me explain. Remember the iceberg slide? So, in order for us to demystify why people are this way or that way, we need to know their core tendencies, who they are when they just wake up in the morning before they put on a face and a face mask to face the world. 10% is the tip of the iceberg that we already established. That does not give us enough information. PXT does. PXT gives us the 90% that we're missing. It measures what makes a person productive, what motivates them, how they react to change, how they learn new things, how they solve problems. Can they multitask? Can they be innovative? Or do they just follow rules? Are they positive? Are they skeptical? Can they make decisions under pressure? Can they hold people accountable? And some of the things that because very important to assess for recently, can they be productive without a bunch of people milling around? Can they innovate? Can they be creative when everything we knew was ripped away? Or did they just curl up and wait for someone to establish some new routine? All of that and so much more is measured and answered by PXT and presented in easy to understand reports with actionable insights that don't require any interpretation. Although I do like to provide some color commentary. Very passionate about this tool. The reason PXT works, and I'm not going to get too technical with it, um, it it's very predictive because it's not putting people in buckets. If you're familiar with assessments, personality tests out there, they put people in buckets, and there's finite number of possible outcomes. We have 20 measurements on PXT on a scale from 1 to 10, and the possible number of outcomes is over 10 trillion. That's as close as you can get to capturing someone's DNA in the, at least in the assessment world. This is how PXT measures each person's uniqueness. And that's why we can really, really understand what makes people tick, what makes your top performers tick. And then with amazing accuracy, we can pinpoint what is required of a successful candidate in each position, and then use all that information for interviewing, coaching your B players to top performance, and all of that with just a few clicks in your assessment portal. I'm showing you this. These are just samples. 1, 2, 3. The first one is performance model for a teller. For this organization, we've built this benchmark of top performing tellers. Then the middle chart, that's our sample person, Oliver Chase. This is his DNA or occupational fingerprint. And the last chart with the little circles, the wheels, and the job match tells us the job fit. Did Oliver Chase, with all of his strengths and weaknesses, challenges and potential, fit the job? Now, what do we do about it? We have interview questions. As you know, assessment is only 1/3 of the hiring decision, and the interview is also very important. So that's why PXT Select includes custom generated interview questions. They're based on the candidate's assessment results. Key areas, there's challenge areas, areas of opportunity to probe and focus your interview. To help guide the interview process, the report also provides these listen for tips, as you can see, which is a new feature and is well loved by the hiring managers. These were created to give clients confidence in their hiring and interviewing process. So for interviewing newbies, these questions can be used as is. And for more experienced interviewers, they're a solid starting point. On the right, I'm also showing you a coaching report that can be used during onboarding. There are a total of 13 reports available with each assessment. They include a team report, which I will show you in just a second. And in 2020, organizations needed to help their teams collaborate better under less than perfect circumstances. So I've been doing a lot of team workshops. This is an example of one team. It's a larger organization, so they had a senior management team and junior management team, and we had a wonderful discussion about how to best communicate with each other, how to not take each other's differences personally, and how to collaborate. How can we complement each other to achieve greater results? A phenomenal workshop. It gives some key points to consider for the team, and each team member gets a report. We also have a leadership report. It looks at each individual person's leadership approach and presents it from the perspective of 6 leadership competencies. Really phenomenal, with bullet points, potential challenges, potential strengths. And that report, by the way, in a promotional situation can be used for selection as well. We have a manager employee report, compatibility between 2 people in the workplace, one working for another. How do we not match each other, but how do we complement each other? And the comments revolves precisely around how to work better together. And the coaching report I already mentioned, specifically designed for coaching your B players to top performance. So to recap, we could have known all of this if when we have a good assessment in place. You could have known, you could have discovered that this Ben person, for instance, who we hired as a new sales manager, and it took us a few months to discover that he was not even a B player. He did not fit the job, but we could have known using the PXT. So to recap your Operation Great People, bottom line, 4 steps: plan, know your roles, know your costs, so you can make smarter investments in your talent, attract passively and actively, be creative, build what presence, build reputation, um, and connect with qualified talent. Choose, conduct better winning interviews with the help of the data during the interviewing process, coming from the interviewing reports that I shared with you, and select the best candidates using the job fit approach. Job fit is key. And then you retain your top talent. If you leverage the technical manuals you have in every person that PXT provides, you can engage, develop, and coach, build loyalty, and phenomenal culture of success. It's not just me saying this. Industry experts say and agree that people are the foundation of every business. And the right people, or as I put it, great people, are the ones that you will want to be on your team in order to become a great organization. Don't take my word for it. There's some really great comments that I've gathered over the years from PXT users, but they really do like this assessment because it's easy to use, cost effective. It helps improve the odds of selecting the right person, that elusive species. It's versatile and comprehensive and helps hiring managers make a more informed decision. And I would like to close with this little cheesy story from the book that's not cheesy, it's actually very serious, called Soar with Your Strengths. When a family of rabbits moves into the woods, they have a whole bunch of little rabbits. They decide to send them to school because all parents want the best for their children. First day, little rabbits join other animals in the woods and go to school. And it's a running class. Can they run? Yes, can they? They're awesome at it. Their self esteem is through the roof. They're very happy to return to school the next day. The second day is a jumping class. Can they jump? Well, yes. In fact, they were starting to think this school thing was going to work out. They like it very much. They were fully engaged in winning. Third day of school, it's a swimming class. Can they swim? You could Google it. They actually can, especially if they find themselves between the barrel of a gun and the lake. They will jump in and get across. The question is, do they like it? Were they built for it? Are they good at it? No, no, and no. What happens when you're failing in something? You guessed it. They were pulled from running and jumping classes because they were already good at it and enrolled in 3 swimming lessons. Because if we give them enough training and coaching, throw them in the lake enough times, they'll get good at it, won't they? So the very training and coaching little rabbits got was an attack on who they are. And they quit school. When growing up, or when they grew up, they built a company where they hired rabbits to run, fish to swim, and birds to fly. And wouldn't it be a wonderful place to work with? Shouldn't we all aspire to this type of a complementary team? I'm just happy they didn't try to teach them how to fly. If you have any questions or would like more information on the hiring, recruiting, interviewing resources that I mentioned, feel free to email me or click on the survey link, Operation Great People. Or you can also contact me through my website, greatpeoplewin.com, because they do, and let me know how I can help. Go for great.